Hi, this is Steve Ferlazzo from Soundcheck Live, and you're watching The Red Booth.
Hi, welcome to The Red Booth Show. I'm Kimberly. On tonight's episode, I have musician Steve Ferlazzo. He talks about the live shows that he manages here in Los Angeles, as well as some of the amazing musicians that he's worked with. So come and join us. So hey Steve, how are you?
Hey Kim, I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm happy that you got to come on the show.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, and happy anniversary. I know you just had a big one.
Oh, yeah. Just had an anniversary, as well as this past Wednesday we celebrated my wife's birthday on stage, which was really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That was on stage, I'm guessing, at Lucky Strike.
Lucky Strike Live at Soundcheck Live on Wednesday nights.
That's right. And now, so why don't you tell everybody what you kind of do there? That's one of the things, obviously, we're going to talk about.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's kind of been the main thing that I've been doing now for the past 20 weeks. I produce and I'm the musical director for Soundcheck Live, which is a weekly, I mean, the technical name is like a jam night, but really it's sort of evolved more into a variety night. And, the jam aspect of it is certainly having anywhere from 30 to 50 different performers who in most cases have not played on stage as a group or as a unit. But
so they're like new sort of artists?
No. Well, there's a very wide cross section. I mean, the things that I feature are touring players, like a lot of guys and gals who have been out on the road with a lot of notable performers, a lot of session people, a lot of extremely talented people in town where their primary deal is working in the studio. And then, of course, above and beyond that, headliners, anyone from Sebastian Bach, Orianthi, Nuno Betancourt. So, yeah, we've had quite a few people roll through. And,
is it mostly rock? I mean,
you know what? It's not exclusively rock. I mean, one of the main things that I've really worked hard is to try and have a certain diversity to the night. So there's a lot of different genres and stuff. You know, I mean, we'll still keep it in the realm of what would be considered popular, not specifically pop.
Okay.
But,
popular rock.
Because
you guys have like a Funky Fridays and
sure,
different things.
and we still do funk stuff on that night as well. We do funk stuff, we do R&B, we do classic rock, we do modern rock, and one of the things that I've really made it a point to do as often as I can is I've done a lot of orchestrations over the years, so I'm very privileged to have a really great body of string players, horn players, percussionists.
You have been like the orchestrator, like the dude with the
everything except for this on stage, but which I still do, just not like a guy standing on a podium. I mean,
you haven't done the tuxedo thing.
No, not as no. I've done the tuxedo thing as a performer, but certainly not as a conductor. For example, in one of the upcoming weeks that I have, I've got a very charismatic singer. His name is Desmond Meeks, and I'm bringing in. I believe right now I'm at 7 string players, flute, trombone, trumpet, French horn.
That's huge.
Percussion, and that's all on just a club stage.
That's amazing.
So it's
not even that big of a stage. I mean, it's decent.
It's decent. It's still a club, and make no mistake, the house engineers and guys at the club don't exactly love me when I do that, but at the same time, the payoff for the audience is great. I mean, this is something that you just can't see in a club environment, and there's just so many great players out there that are eager to be a part of it. So
well, I really love the musicians that I've seen and the bands that I've seen play there. You guys have a great lineup. Your selection is really entertaining. Lots of fun.
Thank
you. I mean, I definitely think people should come and check it out. And also, I think that we should find out more about you in terms of what else you do in the music industry as well. But we have to take a break.
All right.
So we'll be right back after these messages.
I really wanted to put a deck on my house.
The floor was creaking and there were cracks in the wall.
I had them put in walls in my basement.
Well, the whole thing was done on time, on budget, and not a day of work was missed.
Alpha Structural is a top-rate company. I'd recommend them to anybody.
If you live in a hillside home and gravity is pulling you towards the edge of the cliff, I recommend you call Alpha.
It was a real pleasure to work with Alpha.
And welcome back to the Red Booth Show. We are here with Steve Ferlazzo. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
It's going well. I'm sure, in case you haven't seen the show so far, you can probably tell that Steve is a musician.
Most people guess accountant, but I mean...
Yeah. Well, that would be my second guess.
Right, of course.
So I know that you've been working with Lucky Strike, but also you have a great history in music as well. You've worked with some pretty big artists. Can we talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, the last major thing is I've played keys and have been a musical director for Avril Lavigne.
That's amazing.
And that's going on since 2007. So that's actually
almost 10 years.
In the pop world, that's very uncommon. Or rather, I should say it's not uncommon for certain band members to be swapped out. I mean, certainly she is the marquee name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's certainly not something where, from a band point of view, that, you know, other certain members are necessarily featured players, but, you know, the importance of having an incredibly strong band is paramount to some great shows. So, and with her, I've had the great fortune of touring the world many times over and have done pretty much, I think I performed on every major TV show with the exception of the Grammys, I think.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
it's fun. It's fun.
When did you first start doing music with her?
The introduction of it was in the late fall of 2006. It was brought to my attention that she was having some auditions for a new band. I guess apparently at that time she felt that she had wanted to make a transition with, you know, not just certain band members, but an entire change. And she wanted a really very strong pro band. So there's a guy in town.
Like a supportive band, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it takes.
That is what it takes. So there's a guy around town named Barry Squire, and you know, he's extremely well known as the guy who sets up auditions for a lot of major artists. So found out he had reached out to me. He had told me about the audition. It was something that I knew that I would be perfect for, and I really wanted that gig. So I sort of embarked, I think I'd gotten a call on a Monday and I was supposed to audition on a Friday. So I did an enormous amount of research, figured out who the current musical director was, figured out what the latest look, vibe was, what songs.
That reminds me, you're saying musical director, and I think it'd be really cool to explain kind of what that means to everybody.
Okay. Well, it sometimes means some different things, but the most important thing is that you're sort of either wholly responsible or the main go-to person with the artist that you're working with for realizing what their musical vision is, and then being the go-between for the band members and any other sound or production staff in achieving those goals. And that comes down to arrangements of songs. It comes down to essentially knowing everyone in the band's parts better than them.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of work.
It definitely is more work, but you know, fortunately, I've had a background that wasn't a difficult transition. I didn't start out as the musical director. I became
that after you were the keyboardist.
Correct.
Right.
Yep, for about, well, that was about for the first 4 years, and then transitioned to MD. So.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you'd been on tour with a big
No,
band?
no. That
So what
was.
happened
I mean,
before?
that's. All right. So either I can work backwards or go forwards, but
Why don't you start from the beginning?
sure. Well, first I was born, and then pretty much right after that, I had gotten into music at an extremely young age. I had some very incredibly supportive parents. So basically, high school happens and all that, and then it's college. So
The supportive parents thing is a very, very common theme throughout my guests. I just have to mention that.
I love that, and I'll tell you, it's a very important part, because the better
That's right. So you
support
listen,
system
parents.
that you have, the better chance that you have. So, my parents had a zero musical background whatsoever. However, they knew how much music meant to me. They did everything in their power to make sure that I got into the best schools possible. So
Musical schools?
Correct, musical
Okay.
school. So that's Berklee College of Music in Boston, Mass.
Okay, awesome.
So I was originally from upstate New York. So I submitted to go to Berklee. Had come from modest means, so we needed some kind of scholarship or some sort of aid. And once again, my parents had checked out several scholarship options. I submitted a bunch of songs. At that time, that's still kind of where synthesizers and drum machines were really still coming up, and I had a very good knowledge of them back then. So I had submitted some stuff of me playing some classical stuff, and then some modern
Like
stuff.
piano and-
Piano was part of it, and then there was another couple of things where I had done some interpretations of classical music with synthesizers and drum machines
Like
and everything.
Bach? No.
Actually, the one that I did was Mozart.
Awesome.
I did a Mozart piece, and then I did a few original compositions of playing and singing. So
right.
fortunately, yep.
We have to take another break. I'm sorry. Well, you can keep telling your story in just a minute. We'll be right back.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it,
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got, or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, baby.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to the Red Booth Show. We're here with musician Steve Ferlazzo, and you were just talking about Mozart.
Yeah, so Mozart's great. I love the classics. But I had submitted a tape, which very fortunately allowed me to get the scholarships that I needed to get into the school, to take the burden off my folks. So
That's
that was great.
kind of amazing. That's not very common.
No, it's not common. And again, it's all a matter of being fortunate, and I was grateful that had happened. So immediately, right after I got into Berklee at that time, I was still of the mindset that I just wanted to be a rock star. So I get into Berklee, and I saw an ad immediately up for some band that was looking for a keyboard player. He had to look really cool, have great hair.
They put that in the ad?
I'm not lying. It was right in the ad. Plus have great gear and have a certain sort of sensibility. So, right after I'd gotten into Berklee, I had gotten into this band, which at the time was called In the Pink, which I'm pretty sure that they got the name perusing through some sort of risque magazine, probably.
Wow.
But anyways, but most people thought that it was like a Pink Floyd tribute band or something. You know, like which one's Pink? I don't know. Okay, so anyways, and I'm trying not to draw this out. So that happened, and I had a lot of theory earlier on. So while I was, you know, writing songs and playing around clubs around town, I really didn't have to study or do, because I had known a lot of the background. So class-wise, you know, things are going great. The A's are coming, and then eventually, in a relatively short time, a couple of record deals happened, which was really surprising.
For In the Pink.
For In the Pink, yeah.
Cool.
And we had gotten a deal. So what had happened was, as a result of the Boston thing, I was very close friends with all the guys in the band Extreme.
Okay.
So, and that friendship continues to today. But one of the
That's
things
like
that
More Than Words
that
and
is
all
More
those
Than
guys.
Words, yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. That's the one that they Kimmel and Jack Black did the wonderful parody of, which was like a shot-for-shot recreation of the video.
That's amazing.
So what had happened was somebody had sent in a cassette tape. I don't know if you remember a cassette tape.
Yes.
You might.
I actually do.
All right.
Definitely.
So for those of you,
I used to record
it's
on the
a
radio.
non-CD. So, anyways, somebody had sent in.
That was how we used to capture music off the radio.
Of course it was.
Those are
Just-
bootleg, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So somebody had sent in a cassette tape of an Extreme song that was unreleased to a local radio station, and on the other side of the tape was one of our songs. The DJ heard the other song, thought it was an Extreme song, played it on the radio, and had started getting amazing response from the audience, and he started spitting the song, and then found out that it wasn't Extreme, and then it was, well, who are these guys and all that.
Wow, that's kind of amazing.
So,
That's like
yeah,
by accident.
That
kind
was
of.
it was kind of by accident, and you know, ultimately things are supposed to happen how they're supposed to happen. So
True.
the irony was that the song started getting picked up across all these stations, and then it had started going westbound because it was in Boston. So that had garnered the attention from some management companies. So we had got.
I just have a question
Yeah.
for musicians and people
Yeah.
out there. Like, your song's on the radio. Do you get any, like, money for that? Or?
Okay, so at this point, no.
Okay.
And I mean, you know, probably we should have. We at the time didn't have management, but had acquired management because the song was getting so much play. So then we had gotten approached by management and approached by record labels. And we were like, well, let's just let the song ride out, and while it's riding out, just put it under your moniker, and then we'll go in and make a record while this is happening. But a decision was made to pull the song off a radio so that we could go into the studio, so that the song didn't develop too much momentum without the support of a label.
Isn't that kind of strange, though? I mean, wouldn't you just want
Well,
to get momentum?
nowadays, that's really what it is about. And, you know, granted, once I finished the story, it was the biggest mistake ever. So we're like, okay, so we pull the song, go into the studio, you know, writing all
You're
this
like,
great
take my
material.
song off the radio.
That wasn't my personal choice, but at the time, when you have big wigs saying this is the right way to go, and you're just young and hungry and just want to make it happen, that's one of those things that,
Right.
you know, you have to be aware about. And I will say that I'm very encouraged that the newer generation coming up are so much more aware of all of the different facets. You know what I mean? There's certainly the creative side, writing music and getting it out there, doing the grassroots approach and doing shows.
Yeah. I don't think they so much just trust necessarily what the
No,
record
well,
labels say, right?
Yeah. And time and history has shown that, you know, that really hasn't been, there's been so many changes in the whole structure
Yeah.
of the
I'm
industry.
not saying that you can't have a lot of help from a record label. I mean,
No,
probably
no.
Avril Lavigne's record label is great, and you know, there can be really big
Once
benefits
you get
from it.
there, then
Yeah.
yes. I mean, there's a certain threshold where you really need that, you know, either record label support or someone like a Live Nation in terms of getting out there. So to end the story quickly, so we pulled it, we're in writing, and not that I want to date myself, but while we're in the studio recording, a little song comes out called Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Oh my God.
And let's just say that when I was telling you about getting in that band, it was about the big hair and all that, so you can imagine that it was of that sort of hair, not hair metal, but hair rock type kind of thing.
And we have to take another break. Right in the middle of this, you're going to have to keep telling me the story. We'll be right back with the Red Booth Show.
I really wanted to put a deck on my house.
The floor was creaking, and there were cracks in the wall.
I had them put in walls in my basement.
Well, the whole thing was done on time, on budget, and not a day of work was missed.
Alpha Structural is a top-rate company. I'd recommend them to anybody.
If you live in a hillside home and gravity is pulling you towards the edge of the cliff, I recommend you call Alpha.
It was a real pleasure to work with Alpha.
The color in my garden keeps the pink in my cheeks. I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell and I had to have Meals on Wheels. They're my savior. My name is Lola Silvestri. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
And welcome back to the Red Booth Show. We are here with musician Steve Ferlazzo. And you were telling us an interesting story.
Yeah, so Smells Like Teen Spirit. And anybody who knew anything about that period, once that came out, and justifiably so, it completely changed the landscape.
I totally remember this because I was a teenager at the time, and basically everyone loved Smells Like Teen Spirit, and
of course.
the hair bands, like there was sort of a rivalry going on, and he was sort of taunting them, saying like, look at you guys, you're goofy with your crazy makeup and your hair, and like, you know, sort of making fun of all of them.
Sure.
And it totally like just decimated that whole like genre for a while.
When Bon Jovi and Def Leppard Can't Sell Records, my record that didn't even come out ain't going anywhere. So that was pretty much the end of that chapter, you know what I mean? And then it's like, you know, either you can, you know, try and play catch up in some sort of genre that's not really, that doesn't speak to you, you know? So yeah, so that was the end of that, and then immediately after that I went into producing. I'm a very big fan of Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, and you know, and
he was also a huge game changer back then too.
Absolutely, and
I think he brought electronic.
Game changer for me. That's exactly what it was. I, you know, not too long, and it was actually during that time, but it was really after that time that I was working at a local club in Boston on Lansdowne Street, which is where the Boston Red Sox play. And I was working at a club, and this band, Nine Inch Nails, was about to come through. I'd heard Head Like a Hole, great song. I'm like, cool. And then I saw the show, and I was working on the stage, and the most unbelievable thing was, for me as a keyboard player, was that a lot of these tones and the aggression was actually coming from keyboards and not just guitars.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute, so I can still play keyboards and not be uncool, you know, if I'm doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that's something that, you know, made a very long-standing impression on me, all the way up to actually auditioning for Nine Inch Nails for the With Teeth tour.
Really? So you got to go on that tour?
I said I auditioned.
That's true.
I did not get the gig. Believe me, I went into almost a year-long depression about it, which is stupid. But at the time, I mean, it was something that I had in my mind felt that the roads were converging, that would, really
Yeah.
be a path. And, it was a great experience. I'd gotten a few callbacks on it, had a sit down with Trent talking about ideas for the show. I had later learned, that he had already had his sights set on a guy named Alessandro Cortini, who has been with him since that time, and he's absolutely amazing. And once again, everything happens for the right reason. He got the right guy, and I still had the good fortune of going on that audition. And then that had led from doing that. Then through my friendship with Nuno Betancourt from Extreme, Nuno was in the middle of working on a record with Perry Farrell, a project called Satellite Party, which was prior to Jane's reforming. So I had gotten involved with that, and through that was able to play Lollapalooza, which was a great experience. And
That's like probably one of the most massive crowds.
It was,
that,
yeah.
Have you played any bigger ones?
Yeah.
You have, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But don't get me wrong. That's a great crowd.
We're running out of time. Okay, but I want to ask you, what is it like playing in front of just like 1 million people or whatever?
I think the largest crowd to date was maybe 75,000. And it's really interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because quite honestly, when you're playing in something that large, you don't see individual people. All right, you see a wall of faces. It's actually so much easier to perform because it's just this mass consciousness of people. So you literally can focus on what in your mind is one person, but that one person in your eyesight is like 300. So it's very exciting. It's obviously amazing. You see the video screens in a huge stage. It's a great experience. I mean,
do you get nervous when you go out there, or are you like totally cool?
I don't get nervous in that sense because, again, there's something that's actually far more terrifying playing in a club of 50 people because you see every single person. I can totally
see that.
And that you see them watching you play, talking on the phone or texting somebody else or being like, and you actually can see those individual people. Whereas playing in a much larger venue or a much larger crowd, you really don't get that.
They're just kind of a blur.
It's cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really fun having you on the show.
It's been great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Definitely. I know you have more stories, so
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Maybe a part 2.
Yes, definitely. And people should come and check out Soundcheck Live.
Yes, please come out and check out Soundcheck Live every Wednesday night at Lucky Strike Live at Hollywood and Highland. We're there each Wednesday. We're going on our 20th week coming up, and by the time that this airs, there'll have been plenty more great shows. So please come and check it out. It's a great night of music.
Cool. Thank you for watching musician Steve Ferlazzo on
The Red Booth.